children of Israel. They're the Judeans. Large movement of African Americans who say that they're the real chosen people, that they're the children of Israel. They're the Judeans. So what are they just trying to create an identity for themselves because they were slaves, or is there really something here? And the answer is, most likely there is something there. And most likely, maybe that they were the original Israelites, and maybe that the Jewish people today who are white, Caucasian people came in a little bit later on. We know that some of the greatest sages of the transmission of the Torah were converts. Africa has perhaps hundreds of millions of people with this identity right now of being from the people of Israel. Does that mean they were from the 10 tribes? Likely not. We were taught by the historians and within our own traditions that when the Romans conquered Judea, a few hundred years after that the tribes of Israel went into exile, perhaps millions of Judeans were sold into slavery. Into Africa, into Rome, deep into Africa. And if you look now, you're seeing people who are most likely the descendants of those slaves who kept true. I'd like to bring up a few specific examples because they're going to be game changers. One of them wrote letters to Israel when it became a state. And they said, we're Israelites out in Africa. Everyone laughed at them and they said, African Israelites, these people are just trying to jump on the first world country bandwagon. They're living in a third world country. They got nothing. We're coming to Israel. We got innovation, technology. So they're trying to get on this train because there's such a thing called the right of return. All descendants of the Jewish people from around the world are able to move to Israel. So they said we are also. And everyone kind of laughed at them, like I said. And a few people took it serious and went out there and started studying them, learned about their culture. And a professor from Duke University went out there and did DNA testing on them. And he showed not only do they share Semitic genes from people who were in Yemen and back to the Middle East, these gentlemen, a large percent of them, have the Y chromosome to be Kohanim, to be priests. Now, if anyone who doesn't know, a priest is a specific family clan of the nation of Israel who come from Aaron, the brother of Moses, who was the first priest. And anyone descended from Aaron has the status title priest. And we found that these men in this village in South Africa called Lemba, L-E-M-B-A, carry this genetic marker to let us know that they share the same as from the Sephardic and the Ashkenaz and the population of the people in Israel today. They share the same exact DNA marker. So that's mind-blowing. So everyone kind of got humbled a little bit who laughed at them and said, now what? Now what do we do about this? This could have tremendous implications. Another area in Africa you have something big happening is in Nigeria. You have the Igbo people, or Igbo, pronounced either way. There's 40 million of them, also Christians, like I spoke about before, how that could happen to the children of Israel very easily. But also a lot of them are now coming out and converting back or adopting the rules of the Torah without all the paganism that they've been practicing for hundreds of years. There's been books written about it from scholars in Nigeria, from scholars from the Jewish people. And where it gets interesting is, in America, there was a slave trade. And a lot of the slaves, a very high percentage of them, came from Western Nigerian ports. And in America today, you see a very large movement of African Americans who say that they're the real chosen people, that they're the children of Israel, they're the Judeans. So what are they just trying to create an identity for themselves because they were slaves, or is there really something here? And the answer is, most likely there is something there. And most likely, maybe that they were the original Israelites, and maybe...
There you have it. A rabbi literally telling you what we've been telling you the entire time. But first and foremost, I want to give praise, honor, and glory to Yahweh, Ba'ashem, Yahweh Shai, Ba'ashem, Rakakodash. Yahweh to this world ignorantly calls God. Yahweh Shai to this world ignorantly calls Jesus. Bahashem means in the name, Rakah means spirit, and Kodash means holy. And that's all in the Paleo Hebrew. Also give double honors to the elder bishops and apostles of Great Millstone, that taught me this truth. And, as you saw in that clip, that Jewish guy is literally telling you what we've been telling you is the truth. And the thing about our people is that, our people have been in captivity for so long that they have Stockholm syndrome without even knowing it. Right? Here it is, we'll tell them, their own people will tell them what's going on, but they won't believe it until Esau says it. As soon as they see some white historian telling them that, they're the Israelites, oh, now it makes sense. But let's just go straight into the scriptures for this one. This is 2 Ezra chapter 6 and verse 27. It says, "For evil shall be put out, and deceit shall be quenched. As for faith, it shall flourish, corruption shall be overcome, and the truth which hath been so long without fruit shall be declared." And that's what we're seeing, is that there is a time where this truth was not declared. It was hidden. It was a mystery, who the Israelites are. But, Yahweh Shem Yahushai has changed all of that. The truth is now being broadcasted throughout the entire earth 24/7 nonstop by the prophets and by a literal heathens. Here it is, just off the outside appearance, this looks like, Edomite, some Jewish guy. But, he himself is telling you that, when you go into the history, when you go into, the DNA, which we don't go by DNA. DNA can be altered. The DNA evidence results can be altered. And it just goes really back to, who your father is. It has nothing to do with DNA. Because, you can have, let's say you're an Israelite and you have a child, with a Moabite woman, so-called Chinese. Here it is, that kid will come out with all types of, Chinese DNA, but he's still an Israelite. So that's why you can't go by the way of DNA. Okay, it has to be just strictly on who is the father. That's the purest way to do it. But going back to 2 Ezra 6, it says, "As for faith, it shall flourish, corruption shall be overcome, and the truth which hath been so long without fruit shall be declared." Right, and that's what we're seeing, is that this word is going out. And it says that in Isaiah, that his word does not go out void. So this guy obviously heard about, the prophets. It says in Isaiah chapter 55 and verse 11, "So shall my word be that goeth forth out of my mouth. It shall not return unto me void, but it shall accomplish that which I please, and it shall prosper in the thing whereto I sent it." Right, and that's what we're seeing, is that this word is doing this job. People worldwide are hearing it. And as soon as they hear it, those that are part of the elect, they're going to get that, curiosity to research a little bit more. And in doing that research, they're going to realize, what, this actually makes sense. This actually is the truth. This is the word. This is the gospel. From there, they're converted. And, heathens, even though they can't repent, they'll do the same thing. They'll look into it and realize, what, that makes complete sense. But, hey, they're heathens. And at the end of the day, no heathen is going to make it on a chariot. No matter how nice they are, it does not matter. Salvation is only for the Israelites. But I remember going into, talking about that point about doing the research. You literally convince yourself. There is this historian that wanted to essentially disprove that the so-called UFOs are not chariots. Let me see if I can actually. Let's do this. Let's go to ChatGPT to put it. Who was the scientist that went on to disprove and actually realized are once looking at research? So it says, who was a scientist that went on to disprove UFOs or angels to actually realize they were once looking at research and made a book? Let's see if ChatGPT can figure it out. have to find who it was. But Dr. J. Allen Hynek, astrophysicist, U.S. Air Force Project Blue Book, total skeptic. His job was literally to debunk UFO reports. After reviewing thousands of cases, including radar visual confirmations and trained military witnesses, he concluded UFOs were real phenomena. He said not angels, not explainable as misidentifications, not necessarily extraterrestrial either. So yeah, not this guy either. I'd have to look more into it, but that was the point, is that once you look into what's actually being said, you realize that the truth is there. It's only people that are ignorant that the Most High has essentially, blinded their minds, and, they don't want to do the deep dig in that. Just disregard the word, disregard the gospel, and let it is, let it be what it be. But, to those diligent searchers, there's a lot of information. A lot of our people want straight facts, solid, hardcore evidence. And there actually is a lot of that. For example, a couple of things I could, just mention off the top is, I remember if you search up a documentary about, they're looking at, places that coincided with the Bible, places that the Bible spoke about. And there's this place over there in the east that they found one of the locations where the ark was at, the Ark of the Covenant. And they found that in this location, there's a burial ground where they found only the right side of the animals, the right side of the animal, the horns, the skulls. And they realized, this lines up perfectly with what the Bible talked about, how the priests would have the right side of the animal. So, what a coincidence. That's proof showing you that these things actually happen. More proof, Sodom and Gomorrah, all the 99.99% sulfur balls on the ground and all the skulls on the ground, and how the scientists talked about how, examining the city, this place burned from the top on down, contrary to a natural fire, showing you that, fire literally rained from heaven, as the scriptures say. That's another proof. And you could go on and on and on, but the point is that the proof is out there. You just have to look. And at the end of the day, it's a faith thing. But the point, the truth is out there. So just a little quick video bringing out this video right here. Rabbi tells the truth about the Israelites in America and Africa. Hopefully this was edifying. With that, I give all praise, honor, and glory to Yahweh B'Hashem, Yahweh Shai B'Hashem Ruach, and double honors to the other bishops and apostles of Great Millstone that taught me this truth. Shalom to you, like Shalom.